Years after his death in a federal jail cell, the story of Jeffrey Epstein is one that just refuses to go away. It's become this massive question mark hanging over the public consciousness. Was it suicide? Was it a sophisticated hit? Or was it just a colossal, unbelievable system failure? The government says the case is closed, but for millions of people, the real story feels like it's anything but. And really, it all boils down to this one simple question. How in the world did the single most watched, highest risk inmate in the entire American prison system end up dying all alone? That one fact that he was unmonitored at the most critical moment is the seed from which almost every single theory has grown. And this is where the path splits. On one side, you have the official conclusion from the government, repeated over and over again. And on the other, you have this deep, nagging suspicion from the public that something just doesn't add up. To really get why, we need to dig into both sides, the official story and all the things that make people question it. Okay, so first things first, let's just establish the baseline. What is the official story according to the US government? The bottom line is this. After multiple lengthy investigations by the DOJ and the FBI, the official word has been consistent and unwavering. Jeffrey Epstein's death was a suicide, period. So let's just walk through the official timeline here. It all starts in July 2019 with his arrest. Then, just a few weeks later, there's that first apparent suicide attempt, and he gets put on suicide watch. But then, on August 10th, he's found dead. The key things to notice here are that years of reports that followed all confirmed suicide, but they also admitted to, quote, serious negligence by the prison. So how did they explain it? Well, you get this one phrase from the Attorney General at the time, William Barr. He called it a perfect storm of screw-ups. The official argument wasn't that there was some grand conspiracy, but something almost just as shocking, a total, catastrophic failure of basic competence. But that's the thing, right? That idea of a perfect storm is exactly what opens the door to doubt for so many people. Were these just a bunch of random screw-ups, or were they, well, a little too convenient? And this is where, for a lot of people, the official story starts to look, well, like Swiss cheese. When you list it all out, it's just staggering. Both guards fell asleep. They faked the records. The two cameras right outside his cell just happened to malfunction. His cellmate gets moved out the day before he dies. And the footage from his first suicide attempt? Oh, that was accidentally erased. For critics, this isn't a storm of coincidence. It's a pattern. So this leads us to the central debate. Was the prison, as many sources described it, just a notoriously understaffed shithole where something like this was bound to happen eventually, or was this something else? Was this a series of errors that were just too perfect, all aligning to make sure the one man who could talk never would? Okay, so if you thought the catastrophic failure theory was wild, buckle up, because now we're going to leave the world of simple incompetence and enter full-on spy thriller territory. This is the theory that Epstein wasn't just a criminal predator, he was an intelligence asset. And like a lot of good thrillers, it all starts with the money. We're talking about a net worth of over $500 million. For a guy who was a college dropout with no obvious legitimate business, you have to ask, where did all that cash come from? I mean, think about it. His financial firm was basically a ghost. It had no website, no public list of clients, no record of any actual trades. So how do you make $500 million with a company that doesn't seem to do anything? Well, this massive question mark has led a lot of people to believe his real business was something else entirely. And this is where we have to learn a little bit of spy lingo. Theorists argue that what Epstein was really running was a honeypot operation. That's an old spy trick where you use sex to blackmail powerful people and get information. They say he was an access agent, not a spy himself, but someone who gets close to the rich and powerful and provides intelligence to someone else. And then you have this. This is maybe the single most explosive piece of the entire puzzle. This quote is attributed to Alex Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney who gave Epstein that incredibly lenient plea deal back in 2008. When asked why, he allegedly said, "I was told he belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." Now, if that's true, it changes everything. It suggests Epstein had protection from the very top. But for what and for who? All right, just when you think this story cannot possibly get any weirder, it does. We're going to peel back one final layer here. And honestly, this one feels like it was scripted in a novel decades before it ever happened. The connection here is almost too strange to believe. It starts with a man named Donald Barr. He was the headmaster of the super prestigious Dalton School. In 1973, he hired a 20-year-old college dropout with no qualifications to teach math there, a young Jeffrey Epstein. This same Donald Barr was also the father of William Barr, the attorney general overseeing the Epstein case decades later. Oh, and one more thing. That same year, 1973, Donald Barr published a very, very strange sci-fi novel. The novel is called Space Relations, and when you look at the plot of this book, written by the man who hired Epstein, next to the real-life crimes of Epstein, well, the parallels are pretty unsettling. The book is about a planet run by oligarchs centered on sex slavery. Epstein's crimes were centered on a private island. The book's oligarchs use enslaved people for entertainment. Powerful elites allegedly used Epstein's ring. It is an incredibly bizarre echo. So you have all these layers, right? The official story, the coincidences, the spy theories, even this bizarre literary echo. It all brings us back to one central question. Why does this story have such an unshakable grip on all of us? Why can't we let this go? Well, it's not just a feeling. The numbers back it up. In one poll, a majority of people, 52%, said they believe Epstein was murdered. Only 21% actually believe the official suicide ruling. That is a massive, massive gap between what the government is telling us and what people actually believe. And really, this is why it matters so much. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. When you strip everything else away, you're left with two absolutely terrible possibilities. Either you have a horrifying conspiracy where powerful people orchestrated a murder inside a federal facility to cover up a blackmail operation, or you have a catastrophic failure where the entire federal prison system is so broken it couldn't protect its most important inmate. There's no good option here. Both scenarios point to a deep, dangerous rot in our most important institutions. And that leads to this idea, summed up perfectly by one commentator. He suggested that the reason we may never get a clear answer is because the truth, whatever it is, might be so damaging that revealing it would shake the country to its absolute core. A truth so bad, he said, it would be revolutionary with a capital R, which leaves us right here with this final nagging question. In a story this complicated, with so many layers of doubt, what happens when the official story itself just feels unbelievable? What's left? What remains is a paradox that wears away not just at the facts of one case, but at our trust in the very systems that are supposed to give us those facts in the first place.